everybody, my name's Martha Manriquez. I'm the Administrative Coordinator of the Graduate Student Center. Thank you for being here. I just want to introduce the people in our department. We have with us Adrianne Silva, who's going to be presenting the workshop, Dr. Luis Vega, who's the Interim Associate Dean of Graduate and Undergraduate Studies. He will also be co-presenting the workshop. And we also have our student assistants, Jay Shayandasani and Mary Glean Pena.
Thank you, Martha. Martha works at the Graduate Student Center. Is an amazing resource person, and Adrianne is our graduate advisor. What if I told you that many of us, myself included, decide to embark on the graduate school journey without having all of the background and preparation necessary, expectations to accomplish the goal, which is to get a graduate degree. Not only that, but learning is a lifelong pursuit, right? And because of that, graduate school is for everyone. If you can get a high school diploma, you can go to grad school, have a better life, and obviously make a little more money. What are some of the things that you should be doing to prepare for graduate school and the preparations, which include, believe it or not, simple things as knowing as what you need to get your degree, your baccalaureate degree, your bachelor's, right? And that means that you should know the catalog, you should know the major outlines, the what courses you need are required, general education. But even then, that may not be enough because there should be a buildup of skills. And you need to use tools for that. And the tools is what you get in the classes, right? And these are going to allow you to go and work with a mentor, right? And the mentor wants to see someone who knows how to use those tools. And if you ask me, what are those tools? Well, writing well, knowing how to do statistics, communicating well, having critical thinking. And those are things that sometimes they're not told to you, right? But when you're taking those courses, you're going to be developing those skills or tools. And then this is going to allow you to develop yourself with a dossier and to be prepared. So in preparation to get your degree, it's not just preparing to get your degree, but preparing to go to graduate school, to apply to graduate school, right? And along that comes all the resources that we have. Your professors are resources. Please do get a mentor, people that you feel comfortable with, go to office hours. Always ask, is there additional material that I can read, especially in the area that you want to pursue graduate school in, right? You should be building knowledge that will impress the professor, that will allow you to do research. So that's the major requirements, as you complete your requirements. And then every class that you take, especially related to your skill building, you want to spend more time, try to get A's. You want to not just take courses, but also you don't get credit sometimes for doing research, but on the other hand, there is money. And in our office, we run a program called the Sally Casanova scholarship program that you can get $2,000 to do research with a professor. So typically after you already done a little bit of, you've taken the courses and you impress them. And then if you are ready for doctoral programs, you could get up to $30,000, and we have those grants here. And we can inform you of those, okay? So approaching your professors is something that you should be actively doing, because let me just give you one scenario. I deal with these scenarios. We have many students who may be put on probation. You may have fall one semester, you don't do as well. You get bad grades and you fall below 2.0. It's early in your career. If you put on probation, it's not the end of the world because you can petition to come back. And it requires that you follow the paperwork, that you study all the requirements. So I say, that even if you find yourself in trouble, which will be one case where you have to learn about the requirements and everything there is, likewise for doing research. You want to investigate every possible opportunity to get a scholarship to programs that foster research, and as well as going to conferences. It's not just the university procedures, but also if you're going to apply to a conference to present your research, what are the requirements? We put like a checklist. So my recommendation is to go over these different requirements that you see there, the checks. And if you can check it, that means you're in good shape. And the reason is that if you go to graduate students who are successful and you show them this list, they will be able to check mark most of them, okay? And obviously we're always here to help you in anything that we can, and you have this in your hands. There is one under getting ready to apply to graduate school. And I'm gonna give you the example because it's very sad to me. So if you stop there, you see the second bullet point in the second check mark, obtain 3 letters of recommendation. If I were to ask you today, could you get 3 letters of recommendation by next week? But it's always sad that many students are not able to. myself included, when I was a student, right? And that's the need to go to your office hours with the professors to get to know them so that they can write letters for you. Let me see, how do I put it here? So getting ready is one thing. The next thing is to accumulate evidence, because believe it or not, you have to present this evidence to the graduate schools, right? Even to your professors. If you approach a professor and you want to do research, you want to know the topic that you want to do research in. You want to impress the professor that you're willing to learn, that you're a good writer, that you have a goal. So those are things that are going to build a record of evidence, a dossier, if you will, right? A resume. So you want to start doing that. So by the time you apply to graduate school, you will have those things in place. And so the preparation, just like I mentioned before, is having all of the, knowing the territory, the landscaping that you're going to be navigating, flying over, and knowing the requirements and knowing that there is help. So as you can see here, a list of your accomplishments, record building. And so here's the second piece of information that I'm grateful to our graduate advisor, Adrianne, is that she created one of these for graduate students. So if you're an undergraduate, I want you to see the first one for undergraduates and the one for graduates, okay? Because the one for graduates, that way you know what to expect. It's always good to be able to know what the next steps are. At least I like to be like that. Sometimes it's a surprise, but that's what you want to do. Now, financial aid may be an issue, right? For a lot of us, I remember. Just know that there are opportunities for scholarships, as you saw there. There is a link that you can go and read, and you'll be surprised how there is money, that you can harness for your studies. Maybe you're too stressed. Right now, we have the pandemic. Believe it or not, we have counseling here on campus, right? And even though that how is that going to help me to go to grad school? Well, if you don't go to counseling, you may get bad grades, right? So you want to use tools that will help you, put you in good standing so that you will go to grad school and you will impress people. Thank you so much for being here. I am a psychology professor. I'm serving as interim associate dean of undergraduate studies and graduate studies. I process a lot of petitions. Sometimes when students are on probation, I also help apply for research grants for the students. So don't hesitate to reach to me, and I should put my email in case you need to send me something, okay? It was difficult for me to approach professors, right? And I know it might be difficult for you. And just get your foot in the door, go to the office, and you'll be surprised. We have a lot of nice people here. So just don't be afraid, be daring, approach professors, and you'll be on your way to success. So here's most of the time devoted to how to apply. So go ahead, Adrianne, thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thank you, Dr. Vega, for all your insight information too. I'm going to talk about how do you get prepared for graduate school when you've already graduated. It's been a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years. So one of the questions that you're going to want to start asking yourself when you're ready, or you think you want to go to graduate school, or you are in the process of getting ready for graduate school, is this the right time? There is no perfect time. The perfect timing was very perfect for maybe 20 students right before the pandemic, and then it wasn't the right time anymore when the pandemic hit. So there isn't always going to be the right time, but is it the right time for you? Are you ready to take on full-time classes, part-time classes, juggling your work, juggling family, having to say no to family outings, having to say no to vacations, having to take on long hours again? Are you ready for that? And then when you're thinking about, okay, this is the right time, next thing is then, how long do I want to be in graduate school for? How long is it going to take me to get my graduate degree? Your willingness to be in a 1-year program or a 4-year program really depends on what graduate program you're going to be looking for when we start doing research. So keep in mind that graduate programs can take from 1 year to 3 years, or even longer if you're going to do part-time or a professional type of graduate program. Then full-time or part-time, and this is definitely an option. There are many graduate programs out there that are accommodating to working professionals, and they're going to be part-time programs. They're going to take a little bit longer, so you have to be ready to know that your completion time is going to be extended. There are also full-time programs where you can't work. That's where you have to remember that whole, is this the right time? Because that completion time is going to be 3 years of full-time school, and you can't work full-time. Is that going to be possible? And that goes back to what Dr. Vega was mentioning about the financial aid. I'm not going to talk about financial aid at this time, but we do have plenty of resources on our website from our financial aid advisor Kimber Willman, who talks about how to fund graduate studies. Then the last question to ask yourself, again, these are questions you're asking yourself before you even start researching. Do you want it to be a full-time campus program or part-time campus program? Do you need it to be online because of the flexibility? Or would you prefer a hybrid where maybe you just go once a month to campus and the rest of the time it's online? When you have an idea of what works best for you, what's going to work best for your timing and what's going to be working best for your completion time, these are the type of programs you're going to want to look for before you start your application process. Once you've decided, okay, it's the right time, I want to get this done within the next 2 to 3 years, I don't mind part-time or full-time, and I'm really open to what's out there. It's research time. In graduate school, graduate studies, doctoral programs, graduate certificates, anything that's at the graduate level, you're going to do a lot of research. You're basically only doing research. And it's not the kind of research where you're, in the lab. It's a lot of research about maybe different topics that you're learning about. And so you might as well just start getting used to researching your graduate program to get you ready for researching at the graduate level. And I really like this picture, the take ownership of your learning. There's going to be times that you're going to be fearful or maybe doubt yourself or doubt your application or doubt your personal statement or you're just going to do a lot of doubting. And I need you to just understand it's okay. But if this is what you want to do the best you can with your application. This is going to be a turning point in your life. Going to graduate school, actually starting the application process for graduate school is such a turning point. There's going to be a lot of time to reflect. You need to ask other people to be supportive. You need to ask people to write you a letter of recommendation. You need to be vulnerable to several people. And it's going to make you realize like, wow, this is a lot, but I'm ready for it. What are your career goals? So if you're a psychology major or you graduated as a psychology major, you don't have to go into a psychology graduate program. You don't have to do that. You can do so much more. You can go into business. You can go into arts and humanities. You can go into law school. You can do any graduate program you want. It's just based on meeting some prereqs or requirements, or if that's the type of career you want to go into. You can jump around. I know a lot of undergraduates who were engineers and then went to graduate school for business. And it was perfect. It opened up and it broadened their skills and also allowed them to apply to other different types of job opportunities that they didn't know existed. Think about your career goals. Also, do you need this graduate degree for promotional or departmental opportunities? So if you're currently working and you're going to go get your graduate degree because it's going to give you, it's going to help you get promoted or it's going to maybe increase your pay, then that's definitely a great reason to do it. If you're just doing it because you have nothing really else to do, I really need you to take into consideration the reasoning and look for a passion or look for something that's going to drive you while you are going through this process. When you do get accepted into a graduate program and you start the graduate program, there are going to be times that it's going to be really hard and you have to remind yourself why you're there. If it's to get that promotion, you're going to stay up 2 nights straight in a row getting that research paper done because at the end of this road, you're going to get a promotion or you're going to increase your salary, or it's going to be a fulfillment in a goal that you've always wanted to be a first generation, the first one in your family to get this doctoral degree or to get this graduate degree. Always have that reason in your mind, especially when you go through some tough times. Okay, let's say you're not really sure what program you want to go into or what is your career goals. You're just been jumping around different kind of organizations and different disciplines, kind of doing this and that. Maybe you need to take an assessment, a personality or career assessment to see what are your passions, what are your skills, and what would you be really good at. Now, when it comes to the educational goals, there are different types of graduate programs. Basically, anything graduate is after you've graduated from your undergrad, right? You have a bachelor's, now you're going to go back to school. Most of all these programs are considered graduate programs. So there's professional degrees, and those would be considered degrees that get you into a job as soon as you've graduated. One way I can always say this is like a lawyer, a business school, an MBA. You're learning something that's just to go work in business per se, right? Then there's academic degrees, and those can be something like the humanities, where you're learning history, and maybe you want to continue with a PhD in history, or maybe you're getting your master's in history because you want to be a history teacher and a history professor at the local community college. So those are academic degrees. Then there's the PhD, there's the JD, which is like the law degree. There's the EDD, which is your educational doctorate. And then there's the MD if you want to be a medical doctor. If you want to get multiple graduate degrees, you can definitely do that. I'm working on my second master's, and I'm learning so much more in this master's. Do I want to go for another degree? Yes. Dr. Vega and I have discussed that maybe I should go for an educational doctoral degree, but I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I've just doubted myself and never really went the route of going to law school or starting the application process for law school. Remember how I said, don't doubt yourself, overcome the fear. So I'm at that point now where I have to take my own advice and overcome that fear and move to the next step if that's what I want. So the same goes for you. If you've always wanted a PhD, let's talk about it. Might not be tomorrow that you start applying for the PhD, but let's get you ready to apply to the PhD in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I also added there campus and university culture. Our university here, CSUB, is, I consider it like a commuter university where most of the students are commuting in and then they go home. Especially now with the pandemic, a lot of us were at home. Well, there's other universities out there that are considered like party schools or are very research intense schools. So they're almost everybody that goes to that school is doing some sort of research, and they're getting paid to do this research. That type of culture is something you have to consider if that's what you want to do. Maybe you want to go to school somewhere by the coast, or you want to go to a real rural university, or you want to go to a huge metropolitan school. Over on the East Coast, Boston, I believe, in Boston, there's like 20 universities within like 10 miles of each other. And that's awesome. Imagine that, so many universities. So you have so many different people you can network doing different programs. Then there's also, are you interested in a minority serving institution? So CSUB is considered a Hispanic serving institution. If that's the type of university you want to go to, look, that should be something you're also looking into. Then I'm talking about accreditations. There are universities and graduate programs out there that are not accredited. Accreditation goes in different layers. The university can be accredited by one governing board, and so that the university is accredited. But some programs in that university are under a different accreditation. So they're accredited twice per se, right? So for example, our MBA, which is our Master's of Business Administration, has 2 accreditations. It's accredited by the CSUB accreditation, which is WASCO. I'm going to go into detail, but it's also accredited by the AACSB, which is a internationally recognized accreditation for business schools. And the MBA and also the School of Business is accredited also by that governing board. So that's something you're going to want to look at when you're looking at these graduate programs. How many types of accreditations do they have? And do they have at least one accreditation? You got to have at least one accreditation, okay? Do you want your graduate program to offer research and or internship opportunities? If you're just graduating from your undergrad and you're going to go straight to a graduate program, you really haven't done too much full-time work. You've done some part-time, you've done some internships. At the graduate level, you want to make sure that that program has continuous research abilities for you to do a lot more work in that type of field and or internship opportunities, so you can already get your foot in the door. So once you graduate, you pretty much have an understanding of how that business works, that organization, that discipline, or those types of jobs that you're interested in working in once you graduate from your master's or your graduate degree. So internships are important. Now, let's take that back. Let's say that you're going to get a promotion with your graduate degree. Well, then research and internship isn't really a big thing for you. You just want to get that, you just want to make sure you get your degree as fast and as soon as possible so you can start making more money or getting your promotion. Those are the two different types of things to consider there. Let's talk about networking opportunities. So one thing from my experience is that when I started my master's in business administration program, I did a 100% online program. I never met anybody in my class. I didn't talk to anybody in my class. I barely even spoke to my professors. So when I graduated, I didn't really get anything out of it, just a degree. And so I really wish I would have done it differently, because networking is so important. Now, in my second master's that I'm working on, I'm networking. I'm talking to other students, I'm talking to professors. I write down people's names and where they work. Like in the beginning of the class, everybody says, oh, my name is this, and I work at, Kern County, this and that. And I'll be like, okay, that person works at Kern County. Because now I'll know if I need to do any networking with them, or if I have any questions about their organization, I can reach out to them. I had them in class. There's that networking. Then the other one is alumni. Going back to my first initial master's program, I don't feel like an alumni to that program. I'll get emails about alumni things and I'm like, that's great. Once I graduate from CSUB with my master's in public administration, I'm really going to feel connected to the school. And as an alumni, I'm going to want to give back. CSUB has all sorts of great opportunities to mentor undergrad or graduate students, or to be mentored by alumni, or to participate in alumni events so that you can get to know other alumni, either in the current, in the program you graduated from, or other different graduate programs or undergrads. That networking opportunities and alumni is something you would want to look at if that's important to you for this program or for the university. And of course, I also added their community partnerships. When you are looking at different types of programs out there, if they say that they have community partnerships with, I don't know, Google, or they have community partnerships with all sorts of medical different facilities, or with organizations that you're really interested in working in, that's a good program. That means that if they have partnerships, you might be able to get your foot in the door and already get a job at your dream organization or dream company. Community partnerships are really important. Resources and tools. If you want to stay with the CSUs, you can just click on the CSU degree search, put in anything. You can put any word in there. You can do counseling, you can do biology, you can do media, social media, any kind of career or program you're thinking of that you might be interested, just put that word in there, hit search, make sure that you filter out just the master's program, and you'll be surprised how many graduate programs are out there that you didn't know even existed. The same goes for the UCs. You might be like, oh, but there's no UCs around here. You never know. A lot of our UC campuses do have online and hybrid programs. Give it a try. Look and see if they have something there that you're very interested in. And also, I'm hoping if you look at the UC degree search, you might look at the opportunity to just go straight from your undergrad to a PhD program. So many UC campuses are accepting undergraduates straight to PhD programs. So if the PhD is something you kind of thought about, go for it. Just look and see and start looking at ways to apply. I also put on there the search for best graduate programs. So a lot of times I'll have an applicant who's like, well, I'm really interested in marine biology. I mean, we don't have marine biology here. I could do the CSU degree search, the UC degree search, but sometimes I want to see what are the best marine biology programs out there. And I can do best marine biology master's program, United States, best marine biology program, California, any of that. And there's always all these lists that populate, and I'll just go and, I'll go to the direct school and show that applicant, look, there's this one, there's that, and then we can go from there. But don't just stick to the CSUs because this is what you know. Look and see what else is out there. And then for specific research, click on that scholarly publications. It's going to take you to Google Scholar. just had an advising meeting with an undergrad who is interested in going into educational counseling. But I started asking a little more questions like, but why? But why? Why? I finally got to the reason why she wants to do educational counseling. And it was, she wants to be there for high school students who are first generation, who have no idea about graduate school or even college. And I'm like, okay. So I typed in first generation high school students with no knowledge of college, and all sorts of scholarly publications, started coming out. And I'm like, okay, see, there's people out there that are already studying this. And then another things, we started looking a little bit closer, and there was a publication that was made, that was published by several students or somebody here at CSUB, and it was exactly what she wants to do as research. So I was like, perfect. CSUB would be the best school to come and apply for educational counseling, and they're doing the same type of research that you want to do. And then the last thing I have here is research, organizational leadership credentials and degrees. So this goes back to career changing or not really knowing what you want to do or where you want to go. If you were to think of a leader or somebody that you really admire, you like their leadership skills, look at their credentials. If it's not on the website, go to LinkedIn. If your favorite, professor went to Harvard and Stanford and USC, and those are the schools you always wanted to go to or dreamed about, reach out to that person and just say, hey, how was it? How was your application? Did you enjoy it? It's always good to see what other people have done or where they've gone, if that's kind of the route you want to go. Always put on here, we'll see a lot of this, but the Graduate Student Center, we do record a lot of workshops that are really interesting and have a lot of ways to answer your questions. So there's the Demystifying Graduate School, which Dr. Vega had talked about earlier in his presentation. If you're interested in research, this one is about different professors and how they got into their PhD programs. Then there's also, if you're interested in going to a PhD program, the CSUs have several opportunities for you to kind of get it financed or get you on over to a PhD program as you're a current CSU undergrad or graduate student. So these links will take you and show you a little bit more. So application expectations.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I do. As far as like the application and stuff, for the GPA, is even if it's below the requirement, are you still able to apply for it, or do we have to go back and retake some courses?
Great question. I have met some of the most successful individuals whose GPA in the undergrad was below a 2.5. Very successful, smart, amazing leaders, colleagues, friends, professionals. Your GPA doesn't determine your future or your success, okay? We don't walk around with our GPA or undergrad GPA over our heads, right? I don't think I've ever been asked what my GPA was in my undergrad when I go to a job interview. Does it mean that if you don't have a 2.5 or a 3.0, you don't apply at all? No, not at all. It just means there's going to be a couple more steps you're going to have to take. It also sometimes means you might need to take some standardized tests to show them that you are capable of being in that graduate program, or you might need to take some additional courses at the community college to help increase your last 60, 90 units. So there's different ways of doing it. But if you really want to go to graduate school and you are willing to take those extra steps, I can help you get where you need to go. I've helped out a lot of students get into graduate school who initially didn't have a 2.5 GPA for the application. So it's possible. But again, don't let your GPA keep you or allow you to be fearful of not even applying. The other thing I didn't write in my document is that a lot of our universities at the graduate level are now doing something called holistic admissions. And what holistic admissions means, they're going to require all these things, but they're not going to deny you the moment you don't have it. If you meet everything else, you just don't meet that 3.0, they're not going to just automatically deny you. I'm not saying all schools, they're going to look at your application holistically. They're going to look at everything about that application. And a lot of times you'll get in just because you met everything else. All right, so now I want to share my document again. Here it is. And you guys can now see the PDF, right? I apologize, it doesn't look that great. So let's talk about the application requirements. And these are, let me start off with the type of applications there are out there. There's going to be university applications, kind of like the Cal State Apply. The UCs kind of have the same thing where you go one place to apply to any of the UCs. Same goes for the Cal States for the 23. Then there's university applications where, for example, you were going to apply to a private university. You're going to apply to Stanford or USC. They have their own university application. So keep that in mind, okay? So there's different types of applications based on the university. On top of that, there's also internal graduate program applications. So for CSUB, you have to first apply through Cal State Apply to apply to the university, but you also, not all of them, but some graduate programs require you to also apply internally, and they have a second application to the graduate program. So you're gonna always wanna make sure that you're following all the directions and meeting those requirements just on the application process. Then there's another type of application, and this is the single application for various universities. Kind of feels like our Cal State Apply, but it's different. This one's for, I gave you some examples on there. So the nursing one, if you're applying to our nursing program, technically you would apply through our Cal State Apply because that's our university application system, but you're also going to apply through the nursing CAS. And through that nursing centralized application in the nursing program, you're able to apply to CSUB, Fresno State, Stanford, UC Berkeley, whatever other programs or universities also have a nursing program. And so you'll have one application for nursing for all of them. And then the same one would be the same way for the medical school. So keep that in mind, the way that applications are. Then there's application fees. Your application fees are going to range from $50 to $300. When you're thinking about applying to graduate school, take that into consideration. Please look and see if that university has either waivers or grants for the application fee. Private schools tend to be able to help you with those fees. At the CSUs or the Cal State Apply, I apologize, but the chancellor has denied any graduate applications for having any waivers. We do have them for our undergrads, but we do not have any waivers for graduate students or graduate applications. The common application requirements are going to be transcripts. Make sure that you know that you are going to have to send your transcripts to the university. Some require unofficial transcripts, and once you get accepted into the program, they'll then ask you for the official ones. And please keep in mind, official transcripts do have costs between $10 to $50 or more. There's other universities that will require that you send official transcripts with your application. And if you get denied, you're not getting anything back. You lost out on your transcript fees, you lost out on your application fees. Take it like a return on investment. You're spending on these applications. If you get, or when you get accepted to all of them, one of them, you're going to be able to benefit from that in the end. Why are they requiring transcripts? This is for the universities to confirm that you have received your bachelor's and or to also look at your GPA requirements. Common application requirement are your letters of recommendation. And like Dr. Vega said, if you needed to turn in an application today, do you know 3 people who can write you a letter of recommendation? If you don't, this is a good time to start finding out who would be willing to write you a good letter of recommendation. And if you're going to apply to more than 2 universities or 2 programs, try not to use the same people over and over again. It could be very overwhelming. So make sure that you have between 2 to 5 or 6 different people who would write you a letter of recommendation. Application requires 3 for one school and 2 for another. Hopefully you have 5 different people that can write you 5 different letters of recommendation. I also put on here, yes, go ahead, Teresa.
As far as the letters of recommendation, are those limited to professors only or administrators, or who would you seek
Great
out for
question.
that?
Great questions. I don't know about you, but I graduated a really long time ago. And so I could not really ask for a letter of recommendation from one of my professors from 2000 when I went to my master's in business administration. So luckily, on the requirement for letters of recommendation, it just said I can have professional, somebody I worked with, a manager, a supervisor, whoever would write me a letter of recommendation knowing about my skills and my abilities to learn and research and think critically and have leadership skills. So those are kind of some of the wording that you want to make sure that are being written in your letters of recommendation. Make sure you look at the requirements of that program. I would like to go with examples. Our school of our master's in public administration. That one requires 2 letters of recommendation if your GPA is below 3.0, and it can be scholarly or professionally. So they don't even care. They're like, we just need 2, and it has to be one or the other. So if you just graduated from, from your undergrad and you don't have professional recommendation or people that you can ask for professional letters of recommendation, then you ask your professors and they'll be perfectly fine with it. If you need scholarly ones, and I'm thinking the scholarly ones are going to be, sometimes they can be more like the research-based programs, like your biology programs, geology, nursing, medical, something in the STEM related, counseling, psychology. So if it's requiring scholarly letters of recommendation, then you're just going to have to go back and remember who were your favorite professors and hope that they're still around. Go into LinkedIn, start reaching out to these to your old professors and building a relationship with them, right? Like kind of calling them and starting that network and letting them know like, oh, it's been 5 years. I had you first, hey, Dr. Vega, I had you in psychology of evil and good, and I wrote this paper about this, and here. And at that point when you're having to reach out to somebody who it's been a very long time that you've talked to, that's when you want to send them your resume. You want to send them your letter, your personal statement. You want to, maybe if you still have any sort of academic documents that you did from that class, send them that document and let them know like, hey, this is what we did. So you build that relationship with them. I hope that helped. Please, please, please follow the directions on that application. If the application says that the letter of recommendation needs to be filled out by this email and sent to this person, and it's nail mailed and follow those exact directions. The worst thing to do is have the letter of recommendation come to you and you personally submit it. You don't want to do that. Make sure you're following the directions on the program requirements for that application. And then I have a link there for UC Berkeley where it talks about how to get letters of recommendation. One other thing that I've kind of seen and ran into is following up with those that you've asked to write you your letter of recommendation. If your letter of recommendation is not submitted by the time that deadline comes by, you're going to get denied. Graduate directors are looking at the applications at a certain time, and if you don't have all the required documents there, they're just gonna deny you. So you can meet the 3.5 GPA, right? You can meet all those requirements, but you just didn't follow up with a reference, and you possibly can get denied. Please make sure you're following up with the people you've asked to write you the letters of recommendation. And if they can't write that letter of recommendation for you, they just got really busy, they got overwhelmed, they just don't have the time, go find somebody else. That's the reason why I keep going with ask 3 to 5 different people, because then you can just ask somebody else really quickly. And I've seen the ability on some of the applications to just change a name. So that's very possible. I put another template there for the Masters of Social Work on how to write a letter of recommendation. So if you know somebody can write you an amazing letter of recommendation, but they don't feel confident in writing it, there are so many tools out on the internet on how to write letters of recommendation. And the example I have here is a letter of recommendation for a Masters of Social Work applicant. We do have a recorded workshop on soliciting strong references. You can always listen to that. Then the personal statement and letter of intent. This is another common application requirement. I've seen applications that require 2 different personal statements. They require your personal statement of who you are, why you want to go to that school, why you want to go to graduate school, and then also like a letter of intent, like why that program and what do you bring to that program. So please, please, please make sure you understand the requirement of that personal statement and that you're answering the questions they're asking you for, but at the same time, you're able to put in your story and who you are. This is the first and only impression that this graduate director has of you. So you want to make sure that your grammar is correct. You want to make sure you're identifying your skills, abilities, and knowledge, your passion, and the reason why you want to go to that, attend that university or go into that program. Please, please, please do not just copy and paste your personal statement from one to the other, to the other, because every single program is going to have a different requirement with the personal statement. And you don't want that graduate director to be like, I'm not asking for this. I specifically just wanted to know why they want to go to our program. I never asked them to give me their background history. Make sure that you are giving unique and specific personal statements or anything that's written by the application requirement to the program director. And then the additional requirements, these additional application requirements require a resume or a CV. And if you don't know the difference between a resume and a CV, I'm not going to tell you because it's very long-winded, but it's right there. This is one resource that you can go on to and I'll tell you the differences. Graduate programs that require portfolios, kind of like in the fashion and the art programs, they might ask you for a portfolio. And I've gone ahead and given you some links of what a graduate portfolio looks like. And my favorite one that I've just realized really does happen is the interview. And I'm already going to give you a little side note. If you apply and you know there's an interview and you don't get the call for the interview, you probably didn't move up to the next step. If the interview is part of the application, as in, okay, submit your application and then in a week, we're going to do an interview, that means your interview is so important. It's so important. It's what's going to get you to the next step. If your application or that graduate program you're interested in requires an interview, take it like, prepare for it, really know the program, know who the graduate director is, know what the core program, know what the plan of study is, know how long the program's for, like really do some research on that program. And then the self-evaluation survey. This one I've seen in psychology programs, and what it is like they ask you questions about things that might matter if you make it to the next step into the application process. I've never had to take one, but I understand that we do have one for our counseling psychology program. And I've seen, as you can see, I have a little example there of a survey for advisor. This survey is for a chemistry master's program at another university. And of course, I have some examples of ways that you can create a winning personal statement and resume based on your graduate interest or the discipline. So this one are your graduate level standardized tests, and they include the GRE, the GMAT, the LSAT, and the MCAT. And I kind of explained there what they specifically are for, with links to those sites that would give you a little bit more information about their cost and what the breakdown of the program or the test is like. Some of the universities do have ways to help you pay for these tests if they're required. And then for some of our international students or students who live in the United States, but have a degree from another country, at times have to take the language-based standardized test, and I have that information on there. Who's excited for the kiss of death? I'm excited.
Have you heard of, so I know for my counseling psychology program, along with 3 letters of recommendation, they want 3 rating forms attesting to suitability and promise. Is that just a part of the references, or?
Yeah, so that's part of the letter of recommendation. And that's to see a third person, right? Third person's perspective of like your leadership skills and this and your critical thinking and this and that and the other. So it's just like an addition to the letter of recommendation. So yeah, that's also very common. Thank you for bringing that up. So the letter and the rating form, I've seen it as part of that letter of recommendation. But again, if this person's already gonna write you a letter of recommendation, I'm hoping that assessment is helping, like they already know how to answer it, because they were going to put on there, like, you're amazing at leadership, like your analytical and critical skills are amazing, right? So they've already kind of written it in the letter of recommendation, so they can be like, superb, superb, superb. To follow up with what you just mentioned, a very poor letter of recommendation can be a kiss of death. If that person you asked to write you a letter of recommendation really doesn't know anything about your leadership skills or your critical analytical thinking skills, or in that self-rating form is like, oh, I don't know if she's good at this, I've never seen her do this before, that kind of stuff, you just kiss, I'm gonna kiss that application goodbye. You really want to build that relationship either scholarly or professionally with the people who you're asking to write you a letter of recommendation, or be your recommenders, because you want to make sure that when they write that letter of recommendation or they do that assessment of you, they're being genuine, but they truly know who you are, and they know that you will do amazing at graduate school or in graduate school, or you're going to be an amazing counselor, and like, you need to get into this program. That's who you want. You need your biggest supporters to be writing you these letters of recommendation. Now, please do not use personal relatives. That is another kiss of death. If the graduate director is like, why do they have the last name? What is this? A director can actually call a person and say, are you related to, so-and-so? That's another kiss of death. You are completely done with that letter, with that application. As somebody who will know you professionally, genuinely and honestly, will be a full-time supporter of. Another thing is damaging personal statements. And what this is your grammar is completely off. You're not answering the questions that they're being asked on the personal statement. Have somebody else read it. Have a friend, a family member, the person, different people who are going to be writing you letters of recommendation, have them read your personal statement. They can now understand why you want to go to that program, or what you wrote in your personal statement, and can maybe write you a better letter of recommendation. So definitely get a couple eyes on that personal statement. Don't let it be the reason why you don't get into the program or any program. Then there's I mentioned the harmful letters of recommendation, lack of program information. That just goes to, if you were just applying to whoever, you're like, I'm going to apply everywhere, and you don't really know that much about the program. You didn't do any research about the 5 different graduate programs you apply to. That can definitely get you denied immediately. Poor writing skills. You're going to do a lot of research and writing in graduate school, so not having good writing skills is going to be obvious on the personal statement, on the resume. Anything that you are having to submit that is your written information, those graduate directors can see right through it. And then false or misleading information. We all have a story, but don't exaggerate on your story because you think it's going to get you in. Remember those interviews I mentioned? A lot of times they can read your personal statement and then they might ask you a question in the interview. And if you forgot that you kind of lied about stuff, they'll see that you're misleading them. You're not giving them correct information. The other misleading could be, you said that you're GPA wise, but I mean, this is the reason why you have to submit your transcripts. So if you put on your application, you have a 4.0, but your GPA is like a 2.5, like, right? Like, try and be as honest and genuine on your application as possible. So does a personal statement require a specific format, or should it just be in a letter format? You know what? Let's do this. I'm going to go to the reason why I have to say I don't know is that I really truly don't know. I've seen so many different personal statements. I've seen them APA format. I've seen them look like a letter. I've seen them look like cover letters. I've seen everything. And I've also seen students get accepted with all sorts of different types of personal statements. So I want to do what I'm asking you to do. When I'm advising prospective students, I am always using Google too much. I use it way too much. Yes, allow. Let's see what they say. So how to write a standout personal statement. Questions to ask yourself, what are your key points? Pick a few points, be specific, do your research, proofread. But see, this one, again, it doesn't say like it has to be an EPA format or you have to, do Times Square 12. It's almost like a free-for-all based on what works best for you. I don't see anything on here. Okay, I'm gonna try the next one. I'm gonna go to the one that says Go Grad. So it says personal statements usually lend more freedom when it comes to content and form and are intended to give the admissions committee a glimpse into your personality. Again, I can never answer this question to anybody because I'm always like, well, look at it and see. If anything, what I've seen is they'll say 2 to 5 pages or 1 page or like double spaced. So if it specifically says what they're looking for, like just follow what they're looking for, read the instructions, self-reflect. I hope I answered your question because I can't, it's so gray. It's a gray area. How about that? It's a gray area. Hopefully you can use your resources that I've sent here and go through the application and make sure that you're looking at what the requirement is on that personal statement. So graduate school, what to expect on that document we have there. The best way to get an understanding of what to expect in graduate school, the workshop called Demystifying Graduate School, the graduate research practice and process, and graduate hidden curriculum. There's an orientation. It's going to feel like nobody's talking to you right now, but there's going to be an orientation maybe a week beforehand. Sometimes some of these programs have handbooks or student guides that kind of give you all the steps or kind of give you some inside information on how to get ready for that particular program. Yeah, definitely, because it's the worst feeling, being accepted and you're like, now what?
Now what? Yeah.
No. Yes. All right. I'm going to end this session. Meet with me, even as a current graduate student. So if you get accepted to USC, Stanford, and you're just running around crazy trying to figure out what to do next, give me a call, email me, set up a meeting with me. I'm willing to help you kind of figure out the ropes. I've seen so many graduate studies websites for the past year and a half. I know all the tricks and all the little tips on how to get around or who to contact or how to get someone to actually get back to you within 24 hours. Okay, so if you are running into any issues, please contact me. I don't need this to be any harder. I want to make it as easy and seamless as possible. All right, thank you.